Hi, this is Jason from Horrific Nightmares, and this is going to be episode 2 of Positive Spin. Now, before I get into what I'm going to be talking about today, because I'm going to try to keep this a little bit short, apparently there are still people out there who don't have the intellectual capacity to understand exactly what we're doing. Now, we talked about The Fog last week. Is The Fog a great movie? No. Did I enjoy it? Yes. Is it my favorite remake of all time? Not even close. Top 10? No. Maybe even not top 20 or top 30. But that's not the point. The point is to talk about the positives of a very much hated movie so that maybe, just maybe, some people will give it another try. And I appreciate everyone's comments. I appreciate most comments. And I appreciate the people who actually gave the movie another spin. And I've heard really interesting things about the film. Not everyone liked it now, but they stated reasons, not just you're polishing a turd. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The videos I do on this channel are for myself. They're not for anyone else. I do appreciate the people who watch them. I do appreciate the people who comment on them. But I'm doing this for myself. This is not a crusade. When I first got into YouTube, the thought was to get as many subscribers as possible or to get views. I don't really care about that anymore. My goal was to get 1,000 subscribers. I got them. I don't really push it anymore. Views, if you want to watch it, watch it. If you don't, there are thousands of other people who are talking about horror movies on YouTube. It's just as easy to just switch to another person. Keep that in mind. And I'm talking to the people who seem to have the intellect of hamsters. So, with that being stated, let's get to something positive. Our second film that we watched and are now going to talk about is considered by many the worst sequel ever made. Yeah. And that's going to be Exorcist 2, The Heretic. Now, this came out in the late 70s and it almost runs 2 hours. Is it a little too long? Maybe. And why do people hate it so much? In a way, I kind of understand. But we're going to put a positive spin on this film. Okay. Now, The Exorcist 2 has 2 different cuts to it. We watched, of course, the hour and 57-minute cut. There is a home video cut, which is a director's cut, which he cut a lot of stuff out. And by the director, I mean John Boorman. I have not watched that cut of it. I watched just the standard theatrical cut of the film. And I watched it more than once. And I'll get to that in a little bit. Now, here's some of the things I loved about this movie. Like I said, this is not going to be a review. You're not going to get a synopsis here. You may get some spoilers, so if you've never seen this movie, you may not want to watch the rest of this film. With The Exorcist 2, I love the score and the chanting. I thought the chanting was incredibly creepy. It kind of chills you to the bone, or at least it chilled me to the bone in some ways. We have a great cast. Now, the cast doesn't always make a movie, but I think the cast is worth talking about. We have James Earl Jones, Max von Sydow, Richard Burton, Ned Beatty, Louise Fletcher, and of course, Linda Blair reprising her role as Reagan. The set design is fantastic in this. The locations are amazing. And what I mean by locations, some of it takes place in Africa, some of it in other places. I believe a majority of the story takes place in New York, but they do go back to Washington, to Georgetown, and it's just pretty amazing. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and this is going to be run into, I guess, spoiler territory. The name of the demon that possessed Reagan in, of course, The Exorcist was Pazuzu. Now, Pazuzu lost its battle with the priests. So you have a very religious aspect of the first film. This movie goes in a completely different direction, which I appreciated because, let's be honest, I don't think it would have mattered if they had skipped over this one and just made Exorcist 3. I think a lot of people would have still been bothered by this film. Um, Living up to one of the greatest horror movies, which many people say ever made, is a daunting task. So I appreciated the fact that they went in a slightly different direction. What I mean by that, now Pazuzu, like I said, lost his battle. He is battling, he wants to balance the scales. He wants there to be more evil in the world and is kind of pissed off that he lost. So he is attacking the healers or the people who are going to make a difference in the world. I love the 70s feel of this film. It's got kind of that hazy 70s feel, which I love in films like um, Little Girl Who Lived Down a Lane, Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Just that hazy feel. It's really cool. I like the premise. I think the priest, played by Richard Burton, who is trying to restore the priest in the first movie's reputation, because, and it seemed a little bit more like something that would happen today. When something happens, the archdiocese tends to sweep it under the carpet, and you get that feeling from what they're talking about now. Now, even though Max von Sydow's character was trying to help Reagan, it kind of came off as, when he died, they were very embarrassed about what happened. So I thought that was interesting, and sending Richard Burton in, who was actually one of his students, I thought is an interesting premise to investigate his death. I thought it was an interesting premise. I really enjoyed that. Now, it doesn't waste much time getting to the story. We find out Reagan is in this, and this is one of the set designs that I really appreciated, in this kind of experimental lab where they're trying to help kids who are mentally handicapped or autistic or, whatever. And they're using technology in order to try to help Reagan. And I thought that was a pretty cool aspect of the story. I really like this movie. Now, first and foremost, I never hated The Exorcist 2 The Heretic. I just didn't like it that much. Watching it now, and just a little story real quick. I was over at my daughter's. I was on vacation. I took this over to watch it with Joe. This is one of the old snapper cases, of course, that you see here. Sorry, I had to get a drink. My mouth was getting dry. One of the snapper cases, and they don't have a Blu-ray player, I don't think, so I had to play it in the Xbox, or DVD player, I should say. And as I was playing it in the Xbox, it shut off at 40 minutes. So I had to wait. I came back home after my vacation, watched it with Joe. We started it at the 40-minute mark, and it was it was kind of like being interrupted. So after Joe and I watched it again. And I'm glad I waited because I was able to understand a little bit more of what this movie had to offer. This is kind of it's a simple premise, but it's also a complicated premise at the same time. And I think the last words, and this is what I'm going to leave you guys with, the last words or the last lines of this film are very, very fitting. Louise Fletcher's character is talking to Reagan, and she says, "I understand now. The world won't. Not yet." And I think that's the perfect way to end this video, because I think this movie is very misunderstood and not completely grasped by the public itself. Give this one another shot, or don't. Like I said, I do these videos for myself, and I enjoyed this film a lot more than I ever have before. So, there's a positive spin for you. If you like what you see in here, that like button and subscribe. And until next time, peace.